At first, Patriots coach Mike Vrabel claimed that the photographs published in the New York Post of he and NFL athletic reporter Diana Russini were innocent, and he said it was laughable to think otherwise. But then, when the New York Times, the parent company to The Athletic, set out to investigate, well, Russini suddenly resigned. And then, of course, more photos from as far back as 2020 appeared also in the New York Post. And then no one's laughing now. Rossini undoubtedly crossed the line for sure, canoodling with somebody she covers. But what about Vrabel? So here's Vrabel at the NFL draft.
But I take accountability for my actions and the actions that caused the distraction to the people that I care most about.
Starting with you, Lila, I'm sure you've read, Ben Bowen in the Boston Globe did a great piece where he named names and pointed fingers at various reporters at ESPN, at the NFL Network, saying, "Hey, these guys do things like send $700 coffee pots and chocolates in the thousands of dollars to people they cover. They invite them over to their houses for pool parties, with no consequence. It's a conflict of interest, but it's kind of under the table, and everybody goes along with it. There's no question that Diana Russini crossed the line. I mean, denial was also a mistake. And that's also where I say Vrabel is not innocent. He lied. One way or another, he lied. And it just doesn't seem to matter to the NFL. I mean,
So,
domestic violence doesn't matter.
sports commentator Colin Cowherd had a really good point. Cowherd, rather, had a really good point. You've got moral failings and you've got ethical failings, and you can't really confuse the two. Um, Rossini was punished for a failure of journalism ethics. Vrabel is being taken to task for a moral failure, basically cheating on his wife. But the level of punishment, the level of censure, those are two different things. Like what Vrabel did was not a conflict of interest, right? So, as much as I hate to say it, he's not going to be punished for having a conflict of interest that made it easier for his team to get coverage or made it harder for him to do his job. But what Rossini did is a conflict of interest, and it's against journalism ethics. What she did was wrong. I think if a male reporter was caught kissing someone at a singles only resort or canoodling in a hot tub, we'd be having a very different story for some reason, because while spending $16,000 on chocolates for 150 different sources is ethically questionable. Like, at what point does that tip over into something that looks like a bit of a bribe? But there's no moral failing there, so people are willing to give it a pass. I think when you're a woman, when there's sexuality involved, when there's the appearance of impropriety involved, you're judged in a different way. I don't think it's right, but I'm not sure this is a double standard only because I think we've got apples and oranges. The double standard is really Rossini versus her male counterparts in journalism, not Rossini versus Vrabel.
Anyone disagree with that? Scott, what's your take?
No, I endorse
Yeah.
everything Lila said, and she made some of the points that I was going to make. When I was talking about this with my students, we all agreed that the distinction that Lila makes is absolutely on target, which is that they both acted immorally, allegedly, but only Rossini acted unethically by violating the rules of journalism in her workplace. I think that the point about how the NFL handles these things is really worth keeping in mind. I mean, last winter, there were two Patriots players who were accused of
Right.
violence against women, and the only thing anybody seemed to care about is, oh well, we hope they'll be able to play in the next game. And and you look at the Celtics a few years ago, different sport. Um, Joe Mazzulla's predecessor as coach, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. He was caught up in some sort of a untoward relationship,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and he was hustled out of there immediately, which shows that this isn't necessarily a sports thing all around. It may be specific to the NFL.
But lying, Scott. Lying doesn't matter. I mean, and we don't know what else Vrabel shared with Russini. He could have been talking about personal things about players. We don't know, but we do know that he lied.
Well, I wonder. There's also the behind the scenes. I mean, people know a lot of what's going on. You have a lot. I mean, it's a small industry. There's not that many people in it. People kind of know, have a sense of who's dating who's doing what, who's really well connected. You know, the fact that she developed Vrabel as a source at some point is really good for her, you know, for her job, right? The fact that it crossed over at some point into a relationship is like human nature, right? I mean, this stuff happens. But I wonder whether I'll think a lot of this stuff goes on, and there's a lot of but it doesn't, if it doesn't get called out, right? If somebody's, you know, not if most things don't end up in the New York Post, right? Or relationships. But I think people are rewarded for getting good information, getting inside information. But that brings in its risks, I guess, as well. And it is unfair. I mean, yeah, if he was I think Lila brought a great point. You know, if it was a male reporter, what would we be talking about? You know, she is judged more harshly, but on the other hand, you can't, you know, it's great to develop a source. It's not good. You can't have a personal relationship with them. It just, it doesn't work.
You know, Lila, one other question I had for you. Another one of your colleagues, Adrian Walker, wrote about questioning who's doing this anyway. Where are these leaks coming from? Do you think that's salient? Is that something that we should be able to find out? Because it looked like, in terms of the first photographs anyway, that somebody was out to prove a point about Russini anyway, that she was having some kind of a relationship with Vrabel. I think it was, for some reason, I think she was targeted and not him. I could be wrong about that, but does the source matter, do you think?
I think I'd be curious about the source.
Yeah.
And I think that when you get to a certain level in any industry where you have information or access to information that other people don't, you could be targeted. So I think it's much more likely that there's someone who wanted to take Rossini out than there is someone who wanted to take Vrabel out. Because this kind of affair, if that's what I mean, that's a bad word to use here. This kind of alleged relationship, I meant incident. This kind of incident is something that would not be a career ender for a major NFL coach, but it is something. As a journalist, once you've been ethically compromised, it's really hard to come back from that and still be a legit journalist. There are other things you can do, right? You can start your own like talk radio show where you have all the rules and you can become a commentator or something else, but it's hard to stay as a legit journalist once you've been compromised. So there's incentive for her competition to compromise her more than there is for him.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened with Olivia Nuzzi, the woman who had the so-called digital affair with you know, Robert Kennedy, and you know, she lost 2 jobs.
Yeah.
New York.
And there's jealousy, right? I mean, she also was getting stories other people weren't.
Yep.
Right.
And also, but but you know, clearly crossed several lines there. So,
but you know, it's that thing when you get information, you should be skeptical. I mean, for us, it's trust but verify, right? And part of that verification process and that trust process is asking, why does this person have this information and why are they giving it to me?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Adrian's really getting at there.
Yeah, I agree.